Are you living your life or just along for the ride?
So if you're feeling if you're off or something is not right or something is missing, maybe it's time to do a check-in.
Today, we're taking inventory of our actions, habits, and the beliefs we've been handed.
Especially the one that doesn't sit right. And even if the world has told us that it is supposed to be like that.
It's easy to fall into autopilot, but alignment takes awareness.
So let's talk about what it really means to be living intentionally and reconnect with yourself so that we are back on our driver's seat.
Welcome back to the Life, Work, and Health podcast. I'm Shayna,
I'm Navjot.
and
Let's
let's take
take
control.
control.
All right, so today we are talking about getting back into the driver's seat. And this, when we were planning our podcast before, we talked about how this really aligned with the flow of what we were going in our last podcast as well. And
Yeah.
we kind of introduced this topic a little bit.
Yeah.
So we thought maybe it would be really good to dive back in, making sure we're talking about things like taking that inventory.
Yeah. So, like taking inventory about yourself and your actions, is it like, are they influenced by others, or are you doing what you are supposed to do about your mind? Like, what you are doing something that you want to do, or it's like defined by someone else's wanting?
And we're going to really dive into autopilot and what that looks like, and how sometimes we are living in things like familiar discomfort, or we're just in such a comfortable state that we don't really want to do anything or make any changes, even though it goes against who we are and what we believe.
Yeah.
So, we're going to start with talking about autopilot and recognizing when you're living in autopilot, which is something that a lot of us do at different points in time. And I'm going to be 100% honest, I'm feeling a little bit like I'm on autopilot right now because
We had too much
we had
sugar.
way too much sugar.
Like
And-
for that, you can watch the other video about the snacks.
and you'll see what we mean of all of the sugar we just ate. But I think a really good thing that you had said right at the beginning when we were talking about it is all the fog. Like, you feel a bit of a brain fog, and in autopilot, you're not really consciously making any decisions. You're very much just going along and doing A, B, C, D, and you're doing the same thing every single day, and you're not really thinking about it much.
And I think this leads to being passive destructive. Like, you are not destroying your life actively, but you are, because you are not taking actions for certain things, you are not just like, you're getting influenced with other people's mindsets, that you indirectly hurt yourself, hurt your feelings, hurt your future, or any way. But like, you become passive destructive because you are not taking action, that leads to like other people taking action for you, or taking the lead for you, that you are supposed to do this because they want to do it. So-
And something I heard that was very interesting that I just thought of while you were saying that is, no action is also an action, right? When
Yeah.
you choose not to do something, or maybe you don't, maybe you're just like, whatever, it'll figure itself out kind of
Yeah.
thing. That's still a choice. That's
Yeah.
still an action that you're taking, even if you're not choosing to do anything. That's your choice, is you're choosing not to do anything, and you're kind of hoping that maybe somebody around you would guide what was
Yeah.
going to happen. But that brings us into a lot of times feeling uncomfortable. And a lot of times we'll have something called familiar discomfort, which is where you are uncomfortable with the situation and the things that are going on around you.
Yeah.
But it's so familiar that you're thinking, it is what it is. Like, this is, I can't change this. Whatever kind of mantra you're going to tell yourself about it, of this is what I have to do, this is my life, I can't change it, whatever the specific thing you say. And you're just going to live in that discomfort, because thinking about the other alternative of going outside of your comfort zone and making a different change, or not having that familiarity anymore, creates a lot more anxiety for you than that familiar discomfort. And a lot of times when we're in something that's uncomfortable, we get used to that. We get used to that discomfort, but we don't realize the impact that it's actually having on our body and our central nervous system, and how much of an impact until you're out of that situation. And an example I like to use is relationships. where you're in a lot of discomfort, you realize that this person isn't for me, this person makes these decisions that make me feel uncomfortable, whatever it is, but you stay because you're like, I know this person, I'm connected to this person in some way, or maybe you're hoping that they're going to change. But then as soon as you remove yourself from that situation, it's an immediate body release of now you're starting to feel all of the things that were in your body tensed up during that time.
And also like you can connect the frog theory to it, which we talked in the previous video, which is similar thing, like having that familiar discomfort that you don't like tend to understand until it's too much. And with this, like we can also, when somebody is not being passively self-destructive, they will not do things for their own interest. They will try to do things for others or try to please other or validate other. Like it'll tie up in the validation video as well, that like they will try to do things that other people want them to do rather than like thinking what I want to do for my interest or for my benefit.
The chronic people pleaser.
Yeah.
Which is something that I definitely struggled with. I know a lot of people have struggled with it, and it's interesting when you have those conversations with people and you share with them that you know that you're a chronic people pleaser and that all you're trying to do is make other people around you happy, even at the expense of your own happiness and peace and comfort, that the amount of people that say they do the same thing, because that's kind of what we're taught. We're taught that you need to care for others and that you need to do these things for other people, which is true, but you don't need to also do it at the expense of yourself, which is a lot of times what we're taught, that you just put a smile on your face and you pretend that everything's okay and you do whatever you need to do to make sure that everyone around you is happy and satisfied, or, you know, even at work, right?
Yeah.
Thinking about specifically at work, you're taught, well, even if the job sucks, you got to do what you got to do, which yes, you do in some parts of things in your job, but you also can say, I'm not really comfortable with doing this specific thing, especially if it goes against your beliefs, your values, your principles, whatever it may be.
And like now, because I'm working more in admin side of the field, like I see that like it's how easy it's to get to influenced by other people's like decisions, because I get lots of complaint from different residents about this is happening, this is not happening. Like it's very easy to get influenced by them, like in a positive way and negative way. Like I understand like sometimes they have real issues that we need to discuss about, but sometimes it's like just one person's problem but everybody else is happy with that. So we have to, like, it's very difficult, like it's very fine line to walk on when you have to think about, like when you're thinking about other people, like especially in rec field, you have to think about all the residents. You don't have to think about just one person. So like this will be always like a fine line to walk, that you have to focus on your interest and everybody else's interest, but like you have to have that line that you should not do anything that doesn't interest you, that interests others. Like just you don't want to hurt yourself while doing something for others.
And that reminds me of you saying that, of, you know, residents coming to you and complaining about different things. It reminds me of my grandfather always used to tell me. He worked as a union rep, and he said that if everyone liked me, I was doing something wrong, right? Because then that means if you are just constantly morphing yourself into the different people around you, you're not actually authentically being yourself. You're not saying, this is what I'm comfortable with, this is what I'm not comfortable with, and setting those boundaries. And you're just living on that autopilot of, oh, okay, this is the person that I need to be with them, this is the person I need to be here, and it's different personalities each time. You're not actually being yourself, you're not actually living your truth. And then of course everyone's gonna like you because you've changed yourself into be the person that they want, but then you lose yourself on the way because you don't know who you are in your identity anymore. So that's something I always like to play in my head, as well as anytime you're in any leadership role or just in general in life, that if everyone likes you, you're doing something wrong. Because at some point when you make a decision, there's going to be somebody that doesn't like you, and that's their problem. That's not on you at all. If somebody's uncomfortable with your boundary, that's on them.
And like, especially in leadership role, you don't have to think about one person, you have to think about the general population you are working with. So like one person versus 100 people, it's
exactly.
I think a fair comparison.
Yeah, you have to weigh it out. But then for people that can't do that weighing, where they just try to change everything and try to please everyone and try to make sure everything's okay, you're also just going to start to create a bunch of conflict and turmoil in your life, in your work, and whatever it is that you're doing, where you're constantly people pleasing, because then you're now compromising not only yourself, but the people around you as well. And that's now making a decision for other people around you, which can create a lot of discomfort.
I think after a certain point, if we do it like usually, and then after a certain point, people will realize that.
Yeah.
That this person is like trying to please everyone, and they'll not trust you more. And like you'll have a burnout as well because you're not being true to yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, going back to autopilot a bit more here, when you're on autopilot, it's like we were talking about before, the brain fog, but there's also other things that you can think about, like, am I morphing my personality for everybody around me? Am I in the monotony of day to day where I'm just doing the exact same things every single day and I'm not trying to make any changes to better myself, right? Because we all can become a better version of ourselves every day. And it can be very exhausting to think about that of, I could always be a better version of myself, but you're not needing to look at it that way. It's that if I make one choice every single day that helps me to be a better person than I was yesterday, then that's all I need to do. It doesn't need to be these big things every day. But when you're on autopilot and you're just driving right through, you're not making any changes, you're not making any decisions, you're not trying to be a better version of yourself than you were yesterday, you're gonna get very stuck, and it's going to make it more difficult for you to make any change in the future because you're so focused on just getting through, this is the way things need to be. And this is where you start to hear things like, well, we've been doing this for 15 years. Yeah. Why do we need to change it now? Right? And
it reminds me.
It's true, right? Yeah. So we've all been told it at some point in time where you're like, but that doesn't make sense anymore. There's something else that you could do that would help, but that goes into that comfort of that person where they're like, this is all I've ever known, and this is all I have to keep that comfort.
This is one thing like you face at recreation, because residents are really set in their schedule. They don't want to have changes, but like I feel like if we try to introduce new things one at a time, they will love it. Because if you change their whole schedule like just in a day, they will not love it. But like if you introduce that's what I'm doing, like I'm trying to introduce new things every other month, so they try it, and if they don't like it, I can remove it next month.
Yeah, well, and I think that's a really good rule for life as well, is that you don't change everything at once, because then if you do that, it just creates chaos, because then you don't know what you're doing, you don't know how to get to the goal, you have so many balls in the air that you're thinking, how am I going to get anywhere that I need to be? So it's changing one thing at a time. And that's something, even when I set goals for myself, I will do one thing and then I make sure that I do it for a minimum of 21 days, because they say that's how long it takes to get a habit in place. And so I do that, make sure that I can be successful in that thing before introducing a new thing, because it's so easy to overwhelm yourself and then just go back to that comfort and that familiar discomfort because you think this is too much, it's too overwhelming, when in reality you did that to yourself by trying to change 20 different things.
Like similar to when we try to do a new diet, we want to try something new, like our body is not used to having all vegetables and everything at once, because we eat so much different foods, and like just one day we stopped eating everything and we just start eating salad. That will not work. Like our body will crash so badly that you will come back to the junk food, and it'll be more like you'll have more of it compared to the previous ones.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, if you think about a plane in general, when it goes onto autopilot, and if you take it off and then you don't take the reins, you don't try to do anything, where's it going?
It's crashing.
It's crashing. It's going down. So that's where you have to think about, if I'm on autopilot, I have to make specific changes to be able to get myself off autopilot, but I can't just take it off and then hope for the best.
I think it's similar with discipline. Like you cannot change your routine in just one day. You have to slowly introduce different things so that you can adapt to those changes rather than like pushing everything at once.
And it's even when I teach about different behaviors, it's very similar of you change one thing at a time. You target one thing at a time, because if you do any more, you're going to be unsuccessful. And then if you're unsuccessful, you're going to go, well, not trying that again, and you immediately kind of just write it off as it's never going to work.
And you'll feel you're not capable of trying something new.
Yeah, right? And if we're thinking we're going to be unsuccessful, we're not going to do it, because why would I go into something knowing that I'm going to fail?
Yeah.
The next thing we're talking about here is signs that you're out of alignment with your true values, because it's great to think, oh, autopilot, okay, but how do I know if I'm on autopilot? How do I know if I'm not aligned with my true values? This is where we talk about taking that inventory. And we're going to talk a little bit deeper about what that looks like, a couple questions you can ask yourself. But we're going to first start with the signs that you're out of alignment with your true values. So this is where I always like to talk about listening to your body. What is your body telling you in this moment? And doing a quick little scan, right? Where you think about, okay, let's think about my head. Okay, how does my head feel right now? What about my neck? What about my shoulders? What about my back? And becoming very aware of the different parts of your body, because that will be a really good indicator of how you're feeling, because the body really does keep that score of how you're feeling mentally. And we've talked about this before, the connection between mental health and physical health and the interconnectedness.
And also, like they say, like gut also has a brain of itself. Like, so if you have a gut feeling about something, like the body will give you symptoms. Like it could be anything. You will feel uneasy in that moment. You will feel uncomfortable, or you will feel like you don't have the energy to do something. Like when you wake up, you don't feel like going to work or going to any social event or anything that gives you a sign that you are going out of your comfort line, and you are not doing something that's is in place.
And sometimes we will feel that discomfort, but it's a good thing, because it's pushing us to do something that we haven't done before that's going to lead to something good. Because I know for me, when we do the podcast, each time I'm like hyping myself up, trying to be like, okay, we're going to do this. And a big part of it is being on camera and putting your ideas out there and thinking, well, hopefully nobody thinks they're bad, right? And hopefully nobody judges us. Hopefully nobody looks at us and be like, wow. You know what I mean? Where it's like, you're so worried about certain things like that. But by the end of it, like I know after our podcast, I always feel so good and I feel proud. And when we put it out there, I'm proud of it. I'm proud of the work that we've done, but I still feel that discomfort in that time. And so you have to decide in that moment, is this a discomfort because I'm nervous? Or is this a discomfort because I'm not really comfortable with what's going on here, right? So if it was, let's say, for example, we were doing the podcast, and obviously I feel nervous because I want things to go well. But let's say, for example, you were really mean to me. He's not, disclosure, but let's say you were really mean to me. Then it would be taking that moment to go, am I feeling nervous or uncomfortable or whatever feeling I'm feeling because I want to do a good job, or that this is going to lead to something that I'm really passionate about? Or is it because you make me feel uncomfortable? And so it's trying to have that conversation with yourself. And a lot of times when you ask yourself those types of questions the first time, your brain is going to give you an automatic thought that's not the true thing. And so you have to be like, well, that doesn't make sense because of this, right? Where it's, if it was that you were mean to me, I would go, well, Navjot has never been mean to me. And nope, you've been mean to me once. One time. I know. But you know what I mean?
For those who don't know, like you can see our previous video. I'll attach the link on this one.
But so then I would go, well, no, that's not why I'm nervous then, because I know that that's not the reason why I'm feeling nervous or uncomfortable. So you have to make sure that you're really finding out that true reason.
And like you'll know when you are uncomfortable with certain things. Like for example, if you see a person and you start feeling that anxious, that you'll know that this person makes you feel anxious because you're not nervous, because there's something wrong with your relationship with that person. It could be any relationship, could be your manager, could be a colleague, or could be anyone you work with or you live with. That if you see that person and you start feeling anxious, your heart starts pounding, or you feel that like chills, that means that there's something wrong in the relation.
Yeah, and you can also have that conversation with someone that you trust as well, because I know we've had these conversations before as well, where it's just a okay, tell me if I'm wrong, and like, here's the scenario, tell me,
Yeah.
am I wrong in this? Did I have the wrong intuition here? When in reality, every time we're like, yeah, no, that you were absolutely right in whatever you were feeling.
But I think like understanding your judgment is important. Like we need to know, like, are we doing right? But we have that's one thing we talked about in our previous video about validation. We don't want to get validation from a person who might lead you to a wrong path. We
Yeah.
always want to look up to a person who will give you something like good advice.
Yeah. And I think too, when we go to thinking about our judgment, a lot of people will say, oh, I don't have good judgment because they've made a choice at some point in time that led them a certain way that they didn't like, and something happened that they're like, well, I can't trust my judgment now because I did XYZ, or I thought this thing was fine. But you always have to remember as well that you did what you thought was the best thing in that moment with the information that you had, and you will always look back at situations differently than when you were in that moment, because you have different knowledge now than you had at that point in time.
Yeah.
And so it's not fair to have today's Shayna or today's Navjot think about something that we did yesterday or the day before, because we have a different space and a different knowledge now than prior.
And this leads to our next point. It's like how external influences can change our mindset and override that. Like, because we are so focusing on other people's opinion, other people's like, oh, this is they told us they did this and it didn't work for them. Maybe it won't work for me as well. Like, so we start making a cocoon for ourselves that we don't want to break it. But once we break the cocoon, we'll be a butterfly instead of an ugly caterpillar.
Caterpillars are cute.
Okay. Well, like, they don't look cute. Okay.
But yeah, and that's something to always keep in mind too, is that you're going to have different voices in your head.
Yeah.
And it's important to recognize, is this my voice? Because sometimes there's going to be a voice in your head, more often than not actually, that you're going to think, those aren't my words. And I've heard this from somewhere before, for whatever it is. I know for me, a really big one that I always have to remember is for body and like body shaming and things like that. And if I look in the mirror and I'll say, oh, you look whatever today, right? Like whatever I think in my head, or sometimes I even say it out loud.
Yeah.
But then it's, where is the data or the facts on this, and whose voice is that? Because it's not mine, and it's not what I had learned. And that's the same with if you're ever like, I'm not smart enough or good enough, or any of these negative things we're telling ourselves. At some point in time, somebody has told you that, and now that voice is replaying in your head. The most difficult part of that is that it's the same voice in your head the entire time, because it's the voice in your head. You only really have one. So it's hard to decide if this is actually my voice, or if this is somebody just using my voice to share their own information.
Like, it's similar to when we talked about, we should say like we should not say like I am angry or I'm feeling anger. That's like a completely different concept.
Yes.
Like if you fail at something, you can say I'm not a failure, I failed at something, instead of I'm a failure. Like, I think it's about how we like see things. If we try to change our perspective, we can have that same thing into positive feedback. Like, if somebody says that you are fat, like, nobody should say that, but if somebody says, you can like, okay, I am not fat, I'm just like a little overweight, or I like, we don't have to validate that thought, like, but still it's not defines who you are.
But we're so focused on that pure acceptance. And I think when we talk about people's stages of morality, a lot of people get to that pure influence stage and they just stay there. Right? They don't go any further. And so it's thinking, well, what are my peers doing? What do my peers think of me? And that's where, like, when people do something, and, you know, if I think about a leadership video I would always show in a leadership class, where this guy was dancing by himself. He was a shirtless guy. I showed it you. It's been a long time since you've seen it. But anyways, I saw it in my leadership class when I was in school too. He's a shirtless guy and he's just dancing around and he's living his life. And so people are videoing and looking at him and probably thinking, oh, he's so weird. He's so different. Why is he doing that? Is it, you know, all these negative things. But for this guy, he didn't care because he was doing what he wanted. And we shouldn't be so focused on what other people think of us, because people are going to think about you whatever they want to think about you. And sometimes people are going to have a thought of you and have only one specific thing define you, and that's their problem, because there's no point now trying to prove them differently, because they've just proven to you that it's not worth your time to even try to prove different to them, because they've defined you in one thing.
It's like you don't want to fight with a pig because you'll both get dirty and pig will love it.
Wow, that's a good one. That was a really good one. I've never heard that before. I've never heard that before. That is a really good one. There you go. Yeah. Words of wisdom. So that's going to bring us into talking about the inventory. So this is where you want to start to ask yourself those questions. And we've already started to talk about different questions you can ask yourself. But this is where anytime you're making a decision, or in general in your day, you should just have different points in your day that you pause, which is something that we both chose. If we could rewind our life, or we could pause it, we both chose pause, because pausing is such an important thing. Taking that moment, and all it needs to be is a moment. You don't need to take a long period of time to just assess, how am I feeling? How am I acting? And how does that match where I feel I need to be? How does that match with my alignment of how I see my values, my beliefs, and my principles, and the way I see the world in my perspective?
And it also like reflects on your behavior as well, when you are not comfortable, or when you feel that you're okay now. Like if similar, like when we started podcast, I was not like too much familiar with like being on camera and everything. And now like I always look forward to our podcast shoots, like rather than before I was like, okay, I have to do that. Now I look forward to it.
And now this is where you need to go and have two screens open, have Navjot from podcast 1 to Navjot now, and see the difference. But it is true, right? It's that, you have to work through some of those uncomfortable things, because those things are going to lead to greatness.
Yeah.
But it's, again, recognizing that discomfort. Why am I uncomfortable?
Yeah.
Is it I'm uncomfortable because I'm feeling nervous, or is it I'm uncomfortable because something in this situation doesn't sit right with me? So it's trying to always evaluate that. And a couple questions that you can ask yourself when you're taking that inventory. Oh my gosh, inventory. Don't know what I said there, but that was not the word. Are things like, are my daily actions moving me towards the life I want? So this is where also taking that time to think about, what is the life I want? Because a lot of people don't think that. And yes, it's very important to be in the present, but you do also need to think about your present life, and are you where you want to be? Are you doing what you want to be doing? And if the answer is no, then it's assessing that further to see, well, why is the answer no?
Yeah. Like I heard an old saying that we can look ahead in the future and look back at the past, but we cannot stay there. So we have to live in present, but still like not worry about it, but like still plan about future. Yes. Because we still don't know what's going to happen. Like if you plan about something, you don't know what's going to happen, but you're still, if you're even moving a step closer to what you want to be, then it's still a progress.
Absolutely. And I think recreation is a great example of that.
Yeah.
Because if you think about the garage sale that you had yesterday at your work that you had planned, imagine you're just like, hey everyone, we're going to do a garage sale, and then planned nothing. You're like, live in the moment. It's all going to throw itself together.
All the vendors will just show up.
Everyone will be there. Everyone's going to know the time. We're going to have the tents. We're going to have the items. We're going to have everything priced. No, you have to plan those things, right? Yeah. So that's, I feel like, a really good example of that, is that we're still living in the moment. We're still enjoying the event. We're still enjoying the time, but there is so much that you have to plan to be able to get to that point.
Yeah. And like planning is not bad, but like you don't have to over plan everything as well. Like we have to be very careful about, because what happens sometimes, if we don't aim for failure, but like be ready for it. Like you should not aim for failure. Like if you're preparing for something, you don't just think about failure. You always think about how will it turn out. Like always be positive about it. And if it doesn't, just have a backup plan, but not like stay on that failure part.
Yeah, because it could be a failure, or what if it's the best thing that has ever happened, right? It's a 50-50 at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And so it's such a good gamble because, yeah, you're going to have times that you fail. We all will. But then on the other side of it, you might have great successes. And if you don't try, then you're never going to experience those things.
Like one of my manager used to say, like, especially in recreation field, is like, sometimes things go as planned. Sometimes you have experiences.
Yeah.
So like it doesn't matter, like you still have experience and you're
gonna learn from it.
Yeah.
You're always gonna get something out of every situation. Yeah. Then another question is, do my actions reflect my values or someone else's expectations? So this is where you have to think about, is this who I truly want to be? Or am I living for somebody else's expectations where you're saying, oh, well, I have to do this because this person expects this thing of me?
Yeah, and like this, like with it is for this one, we have to be very careful because when we get influenced by other people, it's difficult to find out, is it your true self or is it the expectation from others? Like it is really difficult to figure out that. So you have to think like, does my conscience allow it or no?
Yeah, and that's where, again, going back to that question, that you're probably going to have to ask yourself that question multiple times because the first answer that comes up is not going to be the right one. And you might have to go through that 4, 5, 6, or 50 times to finally get to the true answer. But once you get to the true answer, then that's going to be something that is so beneficial.
And the next point is more like, if you have a fear of judgment, like if you are like what you are doing is out of fear of judgment, like if I do this, people will judge me, or like what will happen, and is it that or is it what you really want to do?
Yeah, and something that was really interesting I thought about earlier that I want to bring up now is about judgment and fear and stress and anxiety, is that you're right, where like we have to plan for the future, but you don't want to have that stress and anxiety at that moment, because not only you're going to have the stress and anxiety beforehand, but you're also going to stress about it again. So you're going to stress about that situation twice if you're so focused about it in the moment before it happens, and then when it happens, you are stressing twice for one situation.
And like even if you do good, if you are excellent at what you are doing, people will still judge you. Like there is no end to judgment.
People are going to judge you no matter what you do, no matter what you say, and let them. That's on them and that's not on you. That has nothing to do with you at the end of the day. It speaks more to somebody else's character if they're judgmental than yours alone. And I think that's something that I've always tried really hard, and I know you try really hard as well, to not be judgmental and have that non-judgmental space for people. And it's something that people truly appreciate. So if you can also be that space of non-judgmental space for somebody else, it's something that you'll also create that for yourself when you have that relationship with that person, where I know I can share things with you and you won't judge me in the same way that you can share things with me and I won't judge you, because we've created that space of being non-judgmental. And so I think that's something that not only don't worry about if somebody judges you, but also try to be that person that doesn't judge.
And for this one, like I think it's really important to understand the difference between perception and perspective, because I may perceive like my perception would for someone would be different and their perspective could be different. So like understanding perspective is important rather than perceiving things, because like as we say, like coin has two sides to it, but like everybody will, like they would have a different story. I could have a different story about them, but like they might not stand to that point, or I might not stand to that point for them. So it's important to not fear about that judgment, because everybody will have a different story about you, rather if you do good or bad, it doesn't matter.
That's true. And we've got one more question that you can think about.
It's like, is there a gap between who I am or who I want to be? Obviously, there will always be a gap.
Yes.
Like you'll always look up to someone or something, but is it something that you want to be because of others, or it is really you that want to be that thing? Like for me, like I want to be a like licensed physio in Canada, but it's not because it is for somebody else. I want it for myself. I don't want it for money. It's just like what I want to achieve, or it's my passion. Like I remember whenever I talk about physio thing, like I get so passionate, and like I try to help people, like even if they tell me if, oh, I have shoulder pain, but what do you think it is, like I get so passionate about finding the problem rather than like thinking about money or anything else.
Yeah.
So like focus on what you want rather than what you want for others to see you.
Yeah, and I think I just need to repeat what you said about there will always be a gap.
Yeah.
There will always be a gap, and I think it's important to talk about that because I've had a lot of people over the years who have told them that I'm not where I want to be, and like I'm nowhere close to where I want to be, and it's just their eyes widen and go, really? And it's, yeah, because you're seeing me at a point in my life that maybe you're hoping to get to, but I'm hoping to be at a different spot, right? And so it's something that there will always be that gap, but there's certain things that you can do to reduce that gap, right? Where some things it's, I'm just going to become a better version of myself every day, whereas others are, you know what, this principle or this value or this thing that I'm doing is just really not aligning with me. So again, having to do a lot of that inner dialogue to figure out what exactly is going on, but always recognizing there will be that gap and it's okay because everyone has it.
And like keep working on like closing that gap. Like for me, it's like I'm not a physio right now, but still I know my position. Like I am still working on my goal, and that's more important, that you still start working or like plan for your goal and keep moving even if you're moving slowly.
Yeah, any movement is movement. And I think sometimes, especially with things like social media, we're so focused on what other people are doing, and we're seeing, oh, that person looks great in this photo, or look at this person being able to travel, or this person has their dream job, or this person has their dream house, or things like that. But when you talk to them, they're also going to have that gap there.
Yeah.
They're also going to have things that they're working towards. But you're right, you just continue to try to close that gap as much as you can, but also appreciating those moments that when you go through things, it's that you've been through everything to this point now, that you can absolutely get through anything else, but it's also appreciating where you were and where you are now and where you might go. But it's just recognizing, being present in that moment and living in that moment and enjoying that moment at the same time, trying to work on becoming a better version of yourself.
So after this, like we'll talk about what things you can do to like being more like having that clear boundaries. Like first point is like stop being a traffic light. For this one, it's more like as we all see, like people go through red signals, go through yellow signals, like without any consequences. So that like it's like testing your patience. Like when people are in your life, like, and they test your patience once or twice, and they know that you are a person that you won't react, so they keep on testing you, and they'll increase their intensity every time they come to you.
Yeah, and boundaries are the biggest thing within this, is that you need to be comfortable in setting those boundaries and understanding that when you do set certain boundaries, people are going to be very upset with you. But again, that speaks to them more than that speaks to you, and you shouldn't change what you're comfortable with. You shouldn't change who you are. You shouldn't change your own boundaries because somebody doesn't like your boundaries. That is something that means those boundaries should stay in place, because if somebody's uncomfortable with that, it means that they don't like that they can no longer push you in the way that you were saying.
And like instead of being a red light, become a speed limit camera. Like I saw a video about someone telling that if you are like, if just there's a speed limit camera in your street, and once you go through it and you get a ticket for that, you have to pay the ticket, and the second time you go to it, you'll realize that there is a speed limit camera, and you'll go slow. And you can like also see it like in this way, that for example, if you like try to meet someone and you tell them, oh, we'll meet at 12, and the other person doesn't show up until 12:30, and you say like, oh, I was here till 12:15, you leave. And you can tell them, oh, my speed limit is only 15 minutes, and after that I'm not gonna stay because you don't appreciate my time. And like be a speed limit camera with consequences, so other person know that they cannot push you around. They will face consequences if they are pushing you around.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a big thing to always remember is that everybody has consequences. It's not just children. And I have heard this so much, especially working in the field that we work in, where it's, well, adults don't have consequences.
Yeah.
And I always laugh, and my remark that I always use is, okay, so if I rob a bank, I have no consequences. I can just rob a bank and I like nothing will happen about it. And a lot of times they'll say, well, obviously that would have a consequence. Okay, then what if I don't pay my rent? Do I still get to just live there? No, there's a consequence. There's consequences to everything in our life. And so for people to say that we shouldn't have consequences or that only kids have consequences is a false belief. It's not something that's accurate. It's that we all have consequences, and your boundaries should also have those consequences of, if you're not going to respect my time, or if you are not going to respect me or my family, my space, my boundaries, whatever it is that somebody is not respecting, then it's okay. Then I don't want you in my life, and I'm very comfortable with not having you in my life, because that means that I don't have to deal with you constantly pushing my boundaries and making me feel uncomfortable.
Yeah. And like the last point is realizing the moment the wheel is taken from you. Like when you are driving, like when you are controlling your life, people will try to influence you with their ideas, like, oh, you should not do things like this way because I didn't do it like that. But like you have to realize in that moment that someone is trying to take the steering wheel from you, and you have to stop that, because ultimately it will lead you to be in autopilot, because you'll lose the control of your life.
Yeah, and the biggest thing to always remember is that it's your life, and you need to be comfortable with the decisions you make. You need to be comfortable with the actions that you take. You need to be comfortable with everything in your life. Even if there's things that are uncomfortable, you need to be comfortable with the thought that this is going to make me feel uncomfortable. Like for a lot of people, something like public speaking. But then when they do it, they know this is something I'm comfortable knowing that I'm gonna feel uncomfortable, but I'm gonna do it anyways because it's for my job or whatever it is, and I'm okay with that. You need to live with yourself at the end of the day. Nobody else needs to live with you except yourself. You need to be comfortable with who you are, what you're doing, and if you're not, you need to change something, because it's gonna be a really long life if you don't change things and take your wheel back. Really,
it's like I think we have talked about this quote, like you have to lose control to be in control to the flow of life, but you don't have to lose your control to others.
Yes. All right, so we've talked a lot about identifying habits and beliefs that were never really yours, different questions that you can ask yourself. So it's really important to just always keep in mind not to change who you are based on the actions of others, and making sure that you're always thinking about the routines, the rules, the ideas, the things that you do in your day-to-day. And is this because I want to do this and this is something I want, I'm comfortable with? Or was this something that was ingrained in me at some point in my life, and now it's just something I do because it's just been in my life since that point in time?
And also, you don't have to change what you are doing like based on other people's action, because as we said, like you cannot please everyone. Like if you are doing that, then you're not doing something good for yourself, you're doing good for other people. So don't try to change your action just to be more okay with other people's.
Yeah, and I think that brings us into talking about something like tolerance versus acceptance. And I think it's really important to talk about those two, because tolerance is where you're putting up with something or you're allowing something, even if you don't agree with it. But acceptance is where you're acknowledging and making peace with something as it is. Because there's going to be certain things like people feeling upset about boundaries that you set, somebody not being happy with something like you were talking about, if a resident's upset with something. It's becoming very accepting of that. I'm not going to please everyone, and that I'm not going to live the way that people want me to exactly live. And I'm going to make choices that people aren't going to like. And I'm going to embrace that, because that is meaning that I'm living my truth, and I'd rather live my truth and ruffle some feathers than live for somebody else and feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, like I would like just to add, like don't because we are talking about not living for others, it doesn't mean that we don't want you to help others, or we don't want but it's just like not doing everything to please others. That's
Yes.
what we want like to talk about.
Yeah, definitely. There's
Like,
a difference between helping others
Yeah, and
trying to just please
please,
everyone
yeah.
around you, definitely. And to add on to the tolerance and acceptance before we move to the next thing,
Yeah.
a good way to think about tolerance and acceptance is that tolerance is that you're sitting in the rain without complaining, where acceptance is you're dancing in the rain. So it's finding the beauty in the things that are out of your control, and then also finding the things that are within your control, like enjoyment and peace and happiness and different choices and actions that you make.
How to realign yourself with your true self is like start thinking about what core values you have. Like it could be any core values, could be ethical, could be work related, could be personal values that you don't want to change or you don't want anybody to change, and like focus on those values and work on those values. It could be anything small, like you don't want to hurt anyone, or you don't want to like do something specific to please other, or you don't want to go out of your comfort zone in particular way. Like for some people a core value could be not eating non-vegetarian, like or meat or anything. It could be doing prayers every Sunday, or it could be like anything that it could be like just that's true to themselves rather than like doing something for other people.
Yeah. A big thing would be, what are my non-negotiables?
Yeah.
What are things that I am not comfortable compromising? And those would be your core values,
Yeah.
right? Then the next one is, which parts of my life feel most me and which feel forced? And you're gonna realize which ones feel forced when you start to identify the ones that are really you, that you feel comfortable with, that you enjoy, that you feel positive in engaging in. And then the other ones that feel very forced, you're gonna go, I don't know why I ever thought I was comfortable with that. And a big thing is always just taking that step outside of the situation, thinking about what is this situation, what's happening in it, and what am I comfortable with or uncomfortable with.
It's similar to like when we talked about happy place. You will not know the time passing, you will not know it is day, evening or afternoon. You will be focused on that, and like that'll be the one thing that you'll feel that this is what I want to do. So the third point is like what I'm doing that I should, or rather I want to do it. Like this is like you are doing that you something that you are doing that you should do, but you don't want to do it because it's not one of your core values, or it's compromising your personal ethics. That I don't want to do it, but I still have to do it. That's, you have to identify that part. And like it's really important to understand that sometimes we have to do things that we don't want to do, but it's like a really
Yeah, it is a fine line, I know,
Yeah,
and
like-
it's something that a lot of times people will say, I should do this, or I should do that. I should do the dishes, or I should do my laundry, or I should do this, or I should do that.
Yeah.
And something that my sister's therapist told her quite a few years ago that I thought was quite clever was, don't should on yourself.
yeah.
Because it's just, you're going to constantly be like, I should do these different things. And like you said, sometimes there are certain things that you have to do just
Like-
based on living, but it's recognizing, is this a should or is this a want? And am I okay with doing this thing that I should do? Or should I be replacing it with something that I want to do?
Yeah, like obviously you cannot skip work. You have to do
Yeah.
your work duties. Like you should do your work duties, and even if you don't want, you still have to do
Yeah.
it. But like finding something that you want to do and you should do, if it is together, if it aligns together, it'll be really fun. Like
Yes, definitely. And our last one is, what's one small change I can make this week to live more in line with my values? So this is something that after listening to the podcast, write it down. Write down what you could make as a change to live more in line with your values. And if you're thinking, well, I don't know what my values are, then that's maybe where you need to start. What are my values? What are my non-negotiables? What am I comfortable with? And if that means doing a Google search of different values that exist, do it.